Good morning, students. In the last class, we have finished the unit about review of literature, and that unit is over. Today, we are starting with a new unit called Research Approach and Research Designs. So, this unit will see the details about what are the important research approaches are there, and under each approach, what are the different research designs are there. And again, we'll see what is a design and what are the important characteristics, types of designs, etc. Also will discuss. Now, research as a whole, we collect information in order to test our hypothesis, to achieve our objective, collecting data. And the remaining aspect of the methodology depends on the research approach first and the research design that we choose for our research study. So this is a very important aspect of research. The correct choosing of research approach according to the research question and according to our objective, according to the hypothesis to be tested, and choosing a correct research design from the research approach. Because the whole aspect, what type of answer we need, how we are going to answer our questions, how we are going to test our hypothesis depends on this aspect. So what is a research approach? This is a broad category. Research approach, if you compare that with a textile shop, for example, a very big textile shop is a research approach. If we compare that with the textile shop, there are numerous big textile shops are there, and there are, in each textile shop there will be a lot of types of clothes are there. So if you want to purchase a good churidar, first we have to determine, according to my finance, according to my taste, where I will get, in which shop I will get the exact churidar, and that we have to identify first. That is a research approach. Once we enter the shop, then we try to go to that particular section where we get the churidar, maybe first floor or second floor, and there will be numerous type of churidars will be there. For example, range up to 500 1 to 10,000 or 1000 1 to 2000, etc. So these are the design, the area from where we choose different type of churidar according to your taste, the design you want to take. So this is something related to research approach, and design is also something similar to that. Research approach is the broad one, and under that there will be, under each approach there will be numerous designs will be there, and from that design we'll choose an appropriate design that we want for our research. And research approach basically derived from paradigms. Paradigms means our viewpoints, something related to our philosophies. So there are two different types of paradigms are there. For example, some paradigms will think that what is work, that is practical. I mean, if something work, something practical, that only they will consider. This is called as the pragmatic approach, pragmatic philosophy. I mean, these people have come to an approach called quantitative approach. Whereas on the other hand, there is something called a naturalistic view. They will not look for practicability, whether it work or not. They always go for the quality. So that approach, where practicability is not given much importance, that is a qualitative approach. Quantitative people will develop machines, tools, etc., because that work that is practical. This is a quantitative approach. So they always focus on quantities, numerical values, numbers, etc. But as a qualitative approach, people will focus mainly on the qualities, opinions, etc. So that is a qualitative approach. They always try to explain, go to the depth of emotions, etc. So that is a qualitative approach. So this is basically the approaches we have developed based on the paradigm. That is the term paradigm, the viewpoint. Okay, so according to the paradigm, we have quantitative approach and the qualitative approach. There is another approach called, when we combine these two together, it's called a mixed approach. Mixed approach also is there, mixed design also is there. So quantitative and qualitative approaches are there. So these are the major approaches. So when we choose a problem and want to try to find an answer to a question, first we have to select whether I will get the correct answer with the quantitative approach or a qualitative approach, or by mixing these two together. And if we mix, that we'll discuss later how we will mix, whether we start with the quantitative and then continue with the qualitative, or start with the qualitative then continue with the quantitative, whether major part is quantity and less quality. So that also we have to determine. Now we'll go to the next slide. This is a comparison between quantitative approach and qualitative approach, quantitative versus qualitative. Let's see one by one. Quantitative, the objective information is collected, where the quantitative approach always look at the objectivity. That is an important factor. We will either measure something or we will observe something and we record the data as such. Subjectivity will not play at all. What we see, what we measure, what we tell, those informations in numerical form, or the quality we convert it into numerical form and we record that. There is no subjectivity at all. What we get, that we record. This is the objective information is collected. Whereas qualitative, the subjective data about social reality, cultural meaning, etc. is collected. For example, a person who's just taken away from the ventilator, I will ask, what is your experience at the time of care during when ventilator is fixed? So that subjectivity is there. They will experience a lot of things, they will tell a lot of things. That's their own personal experience they are sharing. That is the qualitative study. That is a subjective data about many aspects. Any aspect they can tell, they can study. It can be sometimes social, financial, cultural, or gender based, or related to pain. So a lot of experiences. That is a subjective data. So quantitative data, as I mentioned before, it is always quantifiable. It is more in numerical form. It will get us a quantity, whereas the qualitative data, it is non-quantifiable and in a narrative descriptive form. We can quantify some of the experiences. For example, we may say the pain is an experience, but we can say this pain, 10, the score is the maximum pain, or 5 means the pain is moderate pain. 0 to 3 may be very low pain. So it can be converted into quantity, but the qualitative data is always a non-quantifiable one and in a narrative form or a descriptive form. And the third point is that the difference is that quantitative approach is more accurate measurement and generalization. It's a clear-cut measurement. For example, if you measure temperature or take a pulse rate or take the microbial count in culture media, and these are all accurate measurement and generalization. Whereas the qualitative study, it is a in-depth understanding is done. Now we go into the in-depth aspect of an experience. I mean, when a person, as I mentioned in the treatment room, when they receive a treatment, we go to the depth of that emotion and we collect the data from the maximum data to the in-depth. So this is the in-depth understanding is done in the qualitative studies. Now, quantitative studies, the reliability is more important, as whether we can depend on this information. Even the repeated measurement, there will be variability is there. I mean, variability is there. If variability is there, that's not dependable data. So reliability is very important in quantitative studies, whereas authenticity is an important aspect in qualitative studies, whether this information are authentic. We will not use the term reliability there. Whether the information that is given by a person is the correct information, first-hand information, authentic information. That's what we look at the qualitative studies. Now, the quantitative data is broad and wide in nature, whereas the qualitative data is narrow in nature. Quantitative data is rigorous, controlled, and fixed. When the data is very much depends on the some of the type of quantitative studies, the data we control that, and rigorous, strenuous activities done to collect data, and it is somewhat a concrete data. Whereas the qualitative studies, the sample size is small and it is information rich. Whereas the quantitative studies, the sample size is large. The sample size is quite large. And we may go for 100 samples, or in some studies 1000 samples or 2000 samples, etc. Whereas the qualitative study, we always collect data from 5 or 7 or to maximum 10, depends on the factor called data saturation. For example, when we conducted the interview to another person, also we get this exactly the same data. We stop the data collection there because the data has attained saturation. So that is why the sample size is always small for qualitative studies, and it is always information rich. Now, even though we are collecting the sample from 5 subjects, the analysis will come into 70 or 80 pages. Where from a single data, there will be numerous type of analysis there. Whereas the sample size and the data is enormous in quantitative studies, but the analysis is short and the data tables are less in number compared to qualitative data in quantitative, and it is truly representative also. And the second point, as we have discussed, it is rigorous, control and fixed, whereas the qualitative data, it is flexible and emergent. The data, the nature is not that much concrete and fixed. It is flexible in qualitative studies, and the data is emerging also as we progresses in the data collection, as the experience changes and it experience person enter from one experience to another experience, the data will be emerging, and we will get a lot of themes, sub themes, etc. from the data. So it is always emerging. So that is a qualitative studies. Then quantitative study focus on variables, because we have in the when we discuss about the variables, we discuss that there are numerous types of variables are there: dependent variables, independent variables. So many type of variables are there. So we focus on the variables and we try to find out the relationship between the variables in the quantitative studies, and we even formulate hypothesis also depends on the predicted relationship between the variables. Whereas the qualitative study focus on events, interactive processes, etc. So here we are collecting some of the events, viewpoints, emotions, etc. And from that narrations, we get the meaning, what it means, what are the themes we can derive, and what are the sub themes we can derive from this sharing of experiences. Quantitative study are value free because it's in black and white data. There is no values at all. Whereas qualitative study, it is value loaded. Values are more important. Emotions are very, very critical, and we give values the topmost priority in qualitative studies. And quantitative study, we do statistical analysis using statistics, different type of statistics according to the data, according to the hypothesis, what to be tested. We choose different type of statistics for analysis. Whereas the qualitative study, the statistical analysis is not possible. We'll do an analysis called a thematic analysis. The analysis is based on the themes that is derived, and there are some technique also there. Just like statistics in quantitative, we have thematic analysis in qualitative studies. And finally, quantitative studies are less involvement for the researcher. Once everything is planned, involvement is there, the work is there, but is a less involvement for the researcher. Whereas the involvement of the researcher is more and critical in the qualitative studies. The researcher is playing a lot of role in qualitative studies. So again, there are some differences, like we develop theories with the qualitative studies, because we can develop some of the theories in some form of qualitative study. The aim itself is a theory development that is done in the qualitative studies, whereas the theory cannot be tested there. If testing is needed, the theory testing is done in the quantitative studies. So these are some of the other differences between the qualitative studies and the quantitative studies. And for the examination, this is important. They can ask a question about differentiate between quantitative study and qualitative study. So we have seen that there are two important type of research approaches are there, and research approach is something like a very broad category, and under each approach there will be numerous designs will be there, and this is basically the division is based on paradigms or viewpoints. That is why we call it as an approach. Basically, there are two types of approach: quantitative approach and the qualitative approach. And there are so many differences between quantitative approach and qualitative approach. The basic thing is quantity or numerical values is, and the practical application is done in quantitative, whereas the emotions, in-depth data, qualitative data is done in the qualitative studies. So that is the basic difference between these two. Now we go to the next aspect, is about design. So I mentioned that under each approach there will be numerous designs are there. So we should see about what is a design. A design, the definition, there are numerous definitions are there. The first definition given by Krelinger is that it's a plan, structure and strategy of investigation purporting to answer research question and control variance. I'll repeat once more. According to Krelinger, research design is a plan, structure and strategy of investigation purporting to answer research question and control variance. So it involves overall plan, how to get an answer for the research question, all structure and strategy of investigations, that we call as a design. Then Hagway has defined design as overall plan an investigator uses to obtain valid answer to research question. This is a very simple definition and at the same time a powerful definition also. Simple, powerful definition by Havge. Overall plan an investigator uses to obtain a valid answer to the research question we call as a research design. And the third definition given by Jehoda, Dush and Cook is the arrangement of conditions for collection and analysis of data in a manner that aims to combine relevance to the research purpose with economy in procedure. So many aspects are covered in this definition. What are the arrangements of conditions done by the researcher for the collection of the data and analysis of data in a manner that aims to combine relevance to the research purpose with the economy, with the lowest cost, how we can do this effectively. That plan, that arrangements, they're called as a research design. Finally, P.V. Jung defined design as a logical and systematic planning and directing of a piece of research. So that they called as a Jung called as a design. So these are the few definitions of design. Now, why we need a design, research design for a research study? There are so many advantages are there or purposes are there. The first purpose is to facilitate maximum utilization of minimum data that I have mentioned in the previous classes also. If we have a suitable design, we can avoid a lot of repetitions, we can avoid a lot of errors, omissions, etc. So that means it facilitates maximum utilization of the minimum data. With less effort, with less data, we should get the maximum use, maximum utilization. That is the purpose of a design. So each possibility of using collected data for different purposes is facilitated by a good design. Like if whenever we select a cloth, a good cloth, we always look for the durability also. To what extent of time I can use this cloth. And sometimes even we think whether instead of me, even my sister or the cousin sister, etc., also can use the same clothes for some other purposes, some occasions, isn't it? So each possibility of using collected data for different purposes is facilitated by a good design. It also helps a researcher to avoid unwanted data also. So if that data is not related to my study, my objective, we should avoid that data. So a good design will help us to avoid unwanted data also. Then again, the second purpose is it helps to provide valid answers to the research question. So a good design will guide a researcher to get accurate and valid answer for the research question with the minimum expenditure of resource. So that's what we need. We need a valid answer for our question. So a good design, if as choosing an appropriate one, it helps to provide valid answers to research questions. And the third purpose is maximize control over variables. Somehow a researcher need control over variable. Otherwise, the research study, the quality will be less. And that is why the good research study, like an experimental study, the 100% control is there for the researcher over variables. So that's a very good design. That's why we call that as a good design. So the good designs help the researcher to have maximum control over variables. And it can do how, where, when to control variables is determined by a design. Research will become more scientific with the use of good designs. Our next purpose is it help in economy of procedures, a clear direction and avoidance of unnecessary duplication help in economy. The, it gives a clear direction and it helps us to avoid unnecessary duplication also. So it help in economy of procedures. And the fifth one is it make research more efficient. Efficiency in terms of ease and use in enhanced by a good design. Then finally, a good research design give relevance to our research. And whenever we say that I have done this particular research using this particular design, that gives a more relevance, more weightage for our study. So these are the purposes of a good design. Then next we'll see about the features of good research design. A good research design always need a lot of good features. So what are the different features needed for a good research design? The first feature is suitability. A design should be suitable to our study. Otherwise, we will not consider that as a good research. So a good research design is always suitable for the study. Appropriate design will provide a valid answer for the research question. At the same time, we have to remember that if your selected design is not suitable for your study, sometimes maybe give an answer, but that answer for your research question may not be that much appropriate, and you will not get the correct answer, completely correct answer. You get an answer, but it is not a completely correct answer for your research question. So that is a suitability. And again, a good design should be error free. A good design will not provide any room for errors. The researcher can rely on the end result completely if we are using a good research design. There are several methods like double blinding, multiple triangulation, etc. are used to make the design free from bias. That's the important thing. There should not be any room for errors, any room for any bias in the research study. If less number of biases are there, the quality of the research is very high. That's why I mentioned in the true experimental research there is no error at all. There is no chance for any error. So that is a more scientific, more quality study. So that is an error free. Now, a good research should be accurate. Accuracy is needed. A good design is sensitive and precise. The sensitivity in terms of even the minor changes from the normal should be detected. So there should not be any, even does not allow a small change from the exact answer. So a good design is always sensitive and it is very precise also. So it is possible to detect even the minor change in the dependent variable. The study is controlled using a good design, as I mentioned. Then next thing is a good design need power. Good design will create difference between the compared groups in the study. So if two groups are there, it will create a good difference between the groups. So this is a power of the study, and a good design will always have a good power. And again, the next feature is it is very difficult to, I mean, not a feature, because I can say that we cannot say that this design is always a good design, and there are some other designs are poor design. For example, experimental design, true experimental design is always a good design, and non-experimental design has a very poor design. We cannot say that. According to some studies, Maybe the non-experimental design, maybe the absolutely suiting design for that study. In that study, we cannot use a true experimental design. So that particular study, the absolutely very good design is a non-experimental design. So by birth, the question itself, I mean by the make itself, we cannot say that this good design is always a good design. This design is always a poor design. But research question determines which type of design should be selected for the study. Now, selection of research design. How we select a research design and what are the important contribute factor which by which we will select a research design. The first aspect for selecting a research design is intervention. So whether we have an intervention in our study or not. Now, intervention is something like we want to test efficacy of a drug that we found out, or we have developed a mouthwash, and we want to see how effectively this can be used in giving mouth care. So this is an intervention. Or we have developed a teaching module and we are testing how this teaching module efficiently it changes the knowledge, attitude and practice of mothers about diarrheal disease of their children. So this is an intervention. If we have an intervention or not. If we have an intervention, we always go for true experimental study or a quasi experimental study or what we call as the any type of experimental studies. Whereas if the intervention is not there, then we will go for a non-experimental study. So intervention is there. We choose either as an experiment, quasi experiment, or the say as the pre-experimental studies, or we go for a non-experimental study. So intervention is there or not. That is the first factor which determine the selection of a design. Now the second factor is the type of comparison, and there are numerous types of comparisons are there because comparison is one of the important aspect of conducting research. Only if we compare we can identify the difference. For example, if you have a standard, you will be remembering about in the first year you have learned about the orthotoluidine test in testing the chlorine demand, chlorine in presence of chlorine in water, or the hemoglobin estimation using Sally's hemoglobinometer. We have a standard color, yellow color is there, and the present level we compare with the standard color and see where it stands, and according to that we say that it is normal or above normal or below normal. And even the literature also we have comparative literature. Comparison is always done in research. So what type of comparison? That is a thing we'll see. These are the different type of comparisons. A comparison can be done between two groups or more groups. As I mentioned, the maternal mortality rate of India can compare with the maternal mortality rate of Pakistan, China, or with the United States of America. So we know that where we stand. This is a comparison between two or more groups. Again, this is another type of comparison we can do in research studies, the comparison of the same group at two or more point in time. For example, we are doing a study on the heart rate. So just before doing an exercise in the rest, this is the heart rate, and after that we are asking them to do an exercise for 15 minutes and we'll check the heart rate, and then exercise for another 30 minutes and we'll check the heart rate. So this is a comparison between the same group is compared or same person is compared at two or more point in time, and we are able to say that this increase in the heart rate is according to the normal increase, or is there an abnormal increase in the heart rate is there, and the person is having a heart problem. So this is a comparison that also we can do. The same group can compare. The first comparison we are making one group with another group, and this is the same group is compared at a two or more point in time. A third type of comparison we can make is the comparison of the same group under different circumstances or experience. As I mentioned before, there are so many experiences are given, and we compare that the same group under different circumstances. And when we give one experience how they react, another experience how they react. For example, we are exposing a child, a newborn child, to a warmer at some degree Celsius, for example 25 degrees Celsius. What is how they react, what is their vital parameters. And when the child is exposed to a hot weather or in air conditioned environment, and how they react. Or the child is giving two type of treatment. For example, we are applying coconut oil, and another group of children we are giving another type of oil, and we see what is the differences. So there are two type of circumstances and experiences, and when you can compare. The comparison is based on relative ranking. That is also can be done. We rank that particular person, and according to the relative ranking also we can compare persons or groups. In comparison with the sample from other studies, we compare the samples of our study with the samples from the other studies. So these are the different type of comparison we can make. So according to what type of comparison, again the design of the study varies. Now the third aspect of selecting a design is a control of extraneous variable. Now I have mentioned that we control the study variables. At the same time, how exactly or strictly we can control the extraneous variable, external variables that may affect our study. We are not measuring that, but that variable may influence our variables. So how effectively we can control these extraneous variable? According to that, the design will vary. For example, the true experimental design, the researcher will see that all the external variables are maintained constant. There is no influence of any of the external variables, the study variables. Then the fourth criteria for selecting a research design is frequency or timing of data collection. For example, at what time we are going to collect data. Example, one day after the operation. And how frequently we are going to collect data. For example, if data is collected at immediately after surgery, then maybe about the pain, we are collecting data about the pain after 30 minutes, after 45 minutes, after 1 hour, etc. So that is a frequency. So based on the frequency and timing of data collection, our research design vary. Then another factor is research site and setting. The site is an overall location, and setting is a specific area from where we are going to collect our data. For example, in a school may be a site, but we are collecting the data only from standard 10B and standard 10E. So that's our setting. So the research site is the overall location, and setting is a specific area from where we are actually collecting our data. So based on the research site and the setting, choosing how we are going to choose that, our research design will vary. Then again, the next factor is the communication with the study participants. How much communication is possible? Whether we have any communication in the time of data collection with the study participants, or if partial communication or full communication is possible. According to that, our design will vary. The next factor is time of starting the study. When we will start our study. So based on which time we are going to start the study, again the design will vary. And there are a lot of other factors also that we will consider. And this is about the research site and setting, as I mentioned. The site is the overall location for research. The setting is a more specific place from where the data is collected. For example, there are a lot of setting we consider like a naturalistic setting. There is a community studies. Laboratory setting is there like physiology lab or biochemistry lab, etc. Then quasi-natural setting, the examples of the hospital setting is a quasi-natural setting. So these are the site and setting. Other factors are the knowledge and experience of the researcher in choosing a design. Even though there are so many designs are there, whether the researcher or the concerned guiding person have sufficient knowledge and experience in choosing and using the particular design. That is another factor we have to consider. And availability of resources including time. That's in our study, the good design is an experimental study, but whether we have time to do that, or quasi-experiment will go for a quasi-experimental study, the semi-experimental study. So that is the availability of resources including time and limitations of the researcher. Researcher have a lot of limitations. For example, the researcher may not be able to control the variables properly. And according to that limitations, the language problem of the researcher, we had to choose our design. Then the purpose of the study, the ultimate purpose, whether that hinder some of the choosing design. Then there can be ethical issues. Ethical issues also we have to consider, because it's a good study, but ethics prevents that choosing. For example, you have want to prove smoking lead to lung cancer. And a good study is that you ask some people to smoke for 5 years and see whether they develop lung cancer, but the study is ethically wrong. So the ethical issues also prevent choosing some of the study design. Then natural phenomena studied. So the nature of phenomena studies. So what is the exact nature of phenomena that you are studying? So according to the nature of the phenomena, also your study design vary, whether the data will be available during that particular time, whether that will occur suddenly, or some data you will be able to collect only after the occurrence of the phenomena. It's not possible to measure it before the occurrences. So these type of nature of phenomena studied also will vary. So these are the first aspect of our this unit. So in this unit, today we have learned about the research approaches. There are mainly two important research approaches. These are the quantitative approach and the qualitative approach. We have seen the differences between the quantitative and the quantitative approach. Then we have discussed about the designs. So in the design, numerous aspects of the designs we have discussed. About the definition of the design we have discussed. Numerous definitions we have discussed, and after that we have discussed about the purpose of the design, why we need a design, and after that we have discussed about the features of a good research design. Then how we have to select a good research design, what are the factors which determine the selection of a research design. So we are stopping our today's class with these points, and the next class we will discuss about the classification of the research design, what are the different type of research designs are available, and after that we will discuss about the each design in detail.